Hi, Josh here, and on today's episode of the Infographic Show, we're going to be looking at some of the weirdest facts about male body language according to science. This is a weird one right out of the gate. Did you know that beards equal gravitas? According to a 1976 study, men who have beards are seen as more dominant than clean-shaven counterparts. Beards increase the apparent size of the head, making a person seem bigger and more intimidating. That's under your control, but not everything is. In fact, there's one physical trait that can predict a man's salary and success before he even speaks a word. Bad news for the men who got the short end of the stick height-wise. Being tall is seen as one of the most significant factors in male dominance in body language. They're perceived as more attractive, they have higher self-esteem, and it's no surprise that taller men tend to have better odds of landing leadership positions, earning more on average, and are more likely to get promoted. Studies over the decades back this up, so the short kings out there might want to consider platform shoes. Of course, height isn't the only way men signal confidence or dominance. There's a silent battle happening every time two men meet. Handshakes are actually one of the most intimate forms of casual body language used to send a quick message about yourself. Men will often admit that they not only try to convey something through their handshake, but also size up other men by the handshake they give. And there's more than one type of handshake. Most men try for a dominant handshake. The way to tell one of those is that the hand is turned palm down, essentially forcing the other person to submit their hand to be shaken. This is usually combined with eye contact and a tight grip. We've all been on the receiving end of a handshake that is way too firm. By contrast, a submissive handshake, where the person offers their hand first, will often mean that the man is displaying a sense of trust and openness, but it can also signal that the man feels intimidated by a superior or an older figure. This can be an attempt to put the other person at ease. But what about the best of both worlds? A rarer type of handshake is one where a person engages both hands at once. One hand grips the other person's from below and the other pats the outside of the same hand. This two-sided handshake usually signals both dominance and trust. This serves the purpose of both expressing strength and taking control of the situation, all while also putting the other person at ease. But there's a whole lot more going on. Men often prioritize eye contact more than women do. Studies suggest that women tend to carefully observe, but their gaze moves around more regularly. Men, by contrast, are more likely to lock their eyes in place. At times, it can feel like a staring contest, with neither side looking away as dominance is quietly established. This is especially common during heated arguments, when breaking eye contact can feel like giving ground. And another key weapon in body language is distance. But be careful, the way a man uses his personal bubble can reveal exactly how much he respects you. It's invisible, but we've all got some personal space, a bubble around us. And as soon as someone crosses it, we start to become a little uncomfortable. Everyone's distance is different, and it's easy to cross that boundary without realizing it. On average, men report having a larger personal space bubble than women do, so they're more likely to feel threatened by this. Paradoxically, men are still more likely to invade a woman's personal space bubble to assert dominance, even though women tend to have smaller personal bubbles. And you can often see this just by the way they stand. Posture is one of the most common clues to a person's personality. Women subtly take up as little space as possible, which means they'll often stand tightly together, arms close to their body, legs together. Men, on the other hand, they spread out. Their posture tends to be open, and they're typically less aware of space, meaning that if you have to push past someone in a hallway to get where you're going, odds are it'll be a guy. This is partially an overt cue of dominance, but also just a lack of awareness. And there's one area where it's more obvious than any other: manspreading. It's become shorthand for men sitting in a way that makes it nearly impossible for anyone to sit next to them, something that you'll often see on subways or even in airplanes, where space is already at a premium. Women often interpret it as a display of dominance, while men tend to offer a different explanation. They simply can't keep their legs as close together as women thanks to their equipment. Women will often cross their legs while men will sit bow-legged to avoid crushing certain parts down there. This often leads to men taking up 55% of the space in a two-seater. But sometimes it's all in the hands. The hands are one of the most expressive parts of the human body, but they're one area where the difference between men and women becomes more obvious. Women are more likely to keep their hands at their sides, continuing the process of shrinking themselves to be less obtrusive. Men, however, are more likely to gesture with their hands to make a point. This can sometimes be interpreted as threatening when combined with proximity, but most of the time the gestures are a subtle way of communicating. And every gesture tells a story. In fact, the position of a man's palms are the ultimate lie detector in any conversation. The palms are one of the biggest clues to intention. If a man is talking while holding his palms up so you can see them, That's usually a hint that he's trying to be more open and non-threatening. You can see this most clearly with politicians who are often trained to use open-handed gestures to seem welcoming. You'll also notice it when a celebrity takes the stage or when a new boss is being introduced and wants to make a good first impression. But if you can't see their palms, watch out. There are few things that are more likely to create a tell in body language than lying. If someone has something to hide, they're more likely to hide their palms. This is a sign of defensiveness, and it can easily turn into anger if challenged. And if that happens, you're likely to see their palms close into a fist. This is usually a sign of intense stress, the kind associated with a fight or flight reaction. And we all know that men often go straight to fight. But another use of hands might be just as telling. If someone touches their face, that's usually a clue that something is going on upstairs. Originally, that was seen as a big clue that someone was lying, to the point that many who followed this theory would immediately accuse someone if they touched their face a little too often. But now it's believed that this is a correlation rather than a clue. Instead, touching the face is more commonly linked to stress and deep thought, something someone trying to maintain a carefully planned lie may be more prone to do. And if they can't stand still, that's another clue. Men tend to stand on business, with eye contact and focus that are usually the order of the day. So if a guy isn't doing that, it's another clue that there is stress or boredom at play. Fidgeting is one of the biggest clues of this, as restlessness usually means the body can't stay still. Some common types of fidgeting include tapping your foot or shifting in your seat. And more obvious actions like biting your nails or picking at your face tend to show up in high-stress situations. If there is a sudden shift, it's best to pay attention. One of the clearest signs of discomfort in a conversation is crossing your arms. This is more common in men as it's a sign of defensiveness. Women might be more likely to put their hands on their hips, a reversal of the more common shrunken posture. But as men are more likely to take up extra space in general, crossing their arms can be seen as a statement that the conversation has taken a direction they don't like. This behavior can often be seen in photos of awkward meetings between politicians and world leaders. That's what happens when a man doesn't like you. But what happens when they do? There's plenty written on how to tell when a man is attracted, yet men remain mysterious in some ways. They generally tend to be less expressive than women, both verbally and in terms of body language. It's led to plenty of jokes about how men and women speak a different language. But much like in casual conversation, there are more subtle clues that can be seen to determine if a man is in the loving mood. And the first comes from posture. Studies show that some men are more likely to stand up straight, plant their feet, and square up their shoulders when they're interested in a woman. This isn't just to look tall, it's because men who display this behavior are actually seen as more fertile by women. That might be a relic of animal behavior, where poses of dominance play a big role in making a good first impression that would convince a female to mate. But we aren't animals, at least not that kind. But some of these cues are so primal they're physically impossible for him to fake. Some of the most common male signs of attraction are actually instinctive, and they aren't going to be obvious at first glance. One of the strangest and hardest to detect is that his pupils will be dilated. It isn't easy to tell unless you're looking directly into his eyes, but the obvious signs are that his eyes will seem darker or wider, and his pupils will expand when you move closer to him. This is a physiological response to attraction, and it's usually associated with heightened emotions and genuine interest. And this next one might be a little more embarrassing. When a man is experiencing physical attraction, he's likely to get sweaty palms. This is partially a sign of nervousness, as attraction impacts his emotional state. This can happen in any number of situations that cause anxiety. It's a physical reaction caused by stress. But this is one of those cases where it can be a positive side effect. There is a flip side to that, of course. Sweaty palms are likely to make an awkward situation much more so, and can easily cause a nice interaction to go sideways and never get off the ground. But there is one micro-expression that lasts a second, but it's a dead giveaway. One of the most common signs of attraction is raised eyebrows. This is usually a sign that someone is paying attention. If a lecturer says something interesting, you'll see that every eyebrow in a lecture hall will go up in unison. But sometimes the eyebrows only raise for an attractive woman. It's often an instinctive reaction. The man might not even realize he's doing it. Generally, it signals that he's intrigued and he wants to learn more, and he may try to steer the conversation forward. And sometimes it's what men don't say. Men often pride themselves on confidence and clarity. They tend to speak less than women but be concise and direct. That's not the case when they're flirting. A 2020 study showed that people are more likely to struggle with getting words out when they're attracted to someone. and that effect sets in as soon as they meet the person they're interested in. This means that a man may be more likely to stammer or stumble over his words, which can be endearing but also ruin a conversation. Just as attraction can make a man stumble over his words, it can also lead to him acting differently in other ways. It's actually been proven that when a man is looking to impress someone, he's more likely to mirror their behavior. That means that they might behave in some ways that are counterintuitive to how they usually do. This is a subconscious behavior that usually focuses on nonverbal communication and body language. It can be most obvious when it comes to how someone holds their hands, what kind of eye contact they make, or even how they're sitting. So if a man is breaking many of the usual rules of male body language, it may be because their attention is elsewhere. And one clue might be the most subtle of all, the answer that could tell you if he's falling in love or planning an escape. How often do you blink per day? You probably don't even think about it, but you're doing it constantly. The average person blinks 15 to 20 times a minute, which means that you're doing thousands of blinks a day. It's largely an automatic action, which makes it all the more unique when it starts behaving differently. When a man is attracted to someone, one of the earliest signs is that they won't blink as frequently. This is because they're more focused than usual, so their body works on paying extra attention to the object of their affection. This is especially pronounced when they're directly focused on the person they're interested in, and they're trying to fully absorb everything they see and connect with that person they're talking with. So if you can focus on how often they blink, they might be sending you some signals. But what happens when they start blinking more? Well, that's usually not a good sign. Heightened blinking is one of the most well-known signs of additional stress. If they're uncomfortable in a conversation, that might cause them to blink more often. That's especially likely to be the case if they're lying or trying to pretend to be more interested than they are. But blinking happens so fast, about 1/10 of a second each time, that it's hard to notice, even if you're focused on someone's face. The movement is designed to be nearly imperceptible. So how can you actually tell if a guy is lying to you? The old belief that touching the face is a sign of lying has been largely debunked, but there are still some other signals that can be a dead giveaway. One of them, oddly enough, is touching the nose. Another sign that usually only happens to men is tugging on their collar. Both of these behaviors are associated with nervousness more than anything, which can be triggered by lying. While some gestures reveal nervousness or stress, other subtle body cues are meant to impress and attract. One of the most common body language cues by men when courting is to flex their muscles. This doesn't mean that they start flexing their biceps like a pro wrestler, but there are subtle ways that can be shown off in the stance to make it clear that this is a man with some beef on him. This includes straightening the back to emphasize the chest muscles, sucking in your gut to hide your belly fat, and tightening your arm muscles to show off strength. This can be done casually without appearing to change the pose dramatically. Flexing muscles shows strength, but what about the subtler ways men try to impress? Grooming is one of the most important behaviors in nature. It shows that the animal is capable of taking care of itself and maximizing its natural appeal. And humans are just fancy talking animals that wear clothes after all, so it's no surprise that men will preen and groom themselves subtly when they're trying to impress a woman. This can include rearranging their clothes, looking in the mirror, or styling their hair. This is usually a sign to women around that the man is not only attractive, but he values his good looks enough to make a point of it. And if that's not enough of a hint, there's always the beard option. Now go check out what makes you attractive to women according to science, or click on this video instead.